There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello, BookTube. I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel. This is my cousin, Lindsey. Do you remember her?
Oh, hi. It's been a while.
This is the first of at least 2 videos we're filming tonight, and we're rather tipsy. We're not nearly as tipsy as we were the last time we did this, but the night is young.
Cheers to that.
Since none of you bastards have done my tag video, the 2 books with 1 stone tag, that I launched last Friday, I have coerced Lindsey into doing it. So, I'm going to feed her the prompts, and she's going to enlighten us with all her bibliophiliac wisdom.
I'll do my best.
So, the first question. The second last book you read.
Second last book I read was called Finding Gobi.
And we'll put the image right there, so don't get your head too close to me so there's room for the image.
There's the book.
Okay. And sorry, it's called what?
Finding Gobi. The true story of a little dog and an incredible journey. And this was a true story. I had read several articles about it, which basically gives you the gist of it. But it's an Australian ultramarathon runner who now lives in the UK. And he was running an ultramarathon starting in China, in the Gobi Desert. And a little dog started running with him. And then it was basically the story of him trying to bring this little dog home with him from China to the UK. And all the press that were behind it, and all the people who were then trying to steal the little dog because of the press and what this meant for making money and fame. And it's a really beautiful story, and it's just but
Wow.
I'm not even a dog person, but I loved it. And
Sweet.
It was so cute.
Steve Donahue, if you're watching, this might be a book for you. Steve Donahue loves dogs. So.
It's a good one, Steve.
Ah,
Good one.
great. And the second last book. So, who's the author?
It's Dion Leonard? Yes, Dion Leonard.
And why? How did you find out about it? I've never heard of it.
It was actually, yes, because around the time I'd read articles about the little dog and about the whole story of how he'd met this dog and how she just started running this marathon with him and covered, the equivalent of a marathon a day with him on her little tiny doggy legs, and just she was there and kept going and just decided that he was her person and went for it. And
Sweet. And have they made it into a movie yet?
no, but they
Sounds like
should.
it should be.
They should. It's so cute.
Great. Okay. What's the second book from the top of your TBR?
Second book from the top of my TBR is... I've looked this up so many times and I keep forgetting. It is called Bad Blood. I'm trying to remember what the subtitle is.
It's not about us, is it? We got rid of that bad blood between us, didn't we?
There's nothing but love here. Nothing but love. Bad Blood, Secrets and Lies in a Silicon Valley Startup.
Oh.
Yes, it's about the Theranos, I think it is.
Uh-huh.
The company that said they had a machine that through blood tests could basically diagnose any medical problem, and how that was all a big scam. So I'm looking forward to reading about that.
Great. Who's the author?
That one was John, how do you say it? Carreyrou?
Carreyrou? Sounds good. Interesting.
No, it's
Did they got totally exposed? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I haven't followed that news story very.
Yeah, I heard about it at the time, and I'd completely forgotten about it. And then I'd seen a spoof of it. Who did the spoof? Was it John Oliver, or was it... I can't remember. Someone did a spoof of it recently, and I didn't remember the context, so I looked it up and kind of remembered that way. And yeah, I'm just kind of interested to see where that all went and if they actually pay for trying to take advantage of people like that.
Number 3, 2 2-star reads.
The list is long. I'm not as nice as I thought I was.
I think that's true.
Let me get through all the 1-stars first. I have to sort. Ugh. I don't tend to like books that were popular.
We do have that in common.
So I'm going to have to say several of the Game of Thrones books ended up on my 2-star reads. Not my thing.
Did you read the whole series?
I've read all the books that currently exist because George R. R. Martin takes his...
Sweet time.
Yes.
So you're a sucker for punishment? Is that what you're saying?
I am stubborn to a fault. We'll put it that way.
That's true.
I'm unwilling to give up.
Thank you for never giving up on me.
Oh, this is not stubbornness. This is love. Oh,
It's kind of synonymous, eh?
indeed. No, I think, but with Game of Thrones,
Did you like any of them better?
I think it's the second or the third one I liked better than the rest. But I feel like, particularly towards the 4th and 5th books, that the story was too big. Like, I felt like it was out of control. Yeah, exactly. I don't feel like he was in control anymore, and it just had run away from him. And, you know, it's that train that's racing down the tracks out of control, and, like, he's trying to catch up to it and trying to get it back, but it's gone.
So that would explain why he's had writer's block for the last 37 years?
No, that's one hypothesis.
So that was one 2-star read. Have you got another?
So many. Oof. Ted Dekker.
Ted Dekker. That name is very vaguely familiar to me.
Ted Dekker wrote, it was, I think, 4 books in a series. The Circle. The Circle series. I'm not sure why I gave this 2 stars, because my only lingering memory of this is intense dislike.
What is it about?
I don't know.
It's about shapes.
I can't even remember where he started, but I think he ended up in an alternate reality and just, I don't know, kind of ruling there. And there were a lot of religious allegories in it, and I just didn't feel like it was all that original or all that well carried off, and I don't even remember that much about it because I just disliked it so intensely I wanted to forget it. So
it's kind of like the plot was going in circles.
We'll call it that. Yeah, I was reading at the same time as my mother, and we're both like, "Are you done yet?" "No, I'm still suffering. How about you?" "No, me too. This is awful. Why are we still reading these?" And we read all of them.
And you didn't bail?
No. Bailings are quitters.
Next video. Is that a circle?
This is a heart.
Okay.
This is a
I'll
heart.
take that.
The Korean style. Can I do it right
It's a
now?
5-star heart.
My nails are too long for it to look like a heart.
You're all about the nails, eh?
Sorry. I can't even type like this anymore.
Number 4. 2 great books by the same author.
2 great books by the same author. Oh, I was thinking about this earlier, and I'm so torn. I think I might go with Claire North. I toyed with this. I have a lot of authors I really like.
Tell us about Claire North.
Claire North is a pseudonym. What was her real name? Catherine Webb, I think.
I think you said that before.
But she has a couple pseudonyms, and under Claire North, I don't always like the books that she writes as Claire North, but they're so interesting, and the concept is always so original that even if I don't like the execution of it or how it played out, it's always really interesting. Just the idea itself, I love that she thought of it in the first place.
Tell us about 1 or 2 of the ones that you like the most.
So I really liked, the first one I read was The 15 Lives of Harry August.
Mm-hmm. You've recommended that to me for the last 5 years. I'll get to it eventually.
And that one, I think it's a love it or hate it, I feel. It's a pretty strong science bend to parts of it. There's basically certain people that they can relive their life, but then when they die, they're reborn at the exact same time, and they just live through their life again. But they can remember their past lives, so they can decide if they want to go the same way or they can look and say, oh, that's the woman I married in a previous life, but now we have nothing to do with each other. And so some of them try to change history. And when they have lives that overlap, they can kind of try to contact each other.
Oh.
And
Overlap with their own previous life?
no, there's several people who live like this.
Okay.
So if one just before their death meets one who's quite young and can say, like, one of us is threatening our existence, we need you to watch out for this. They can communicate and try to change history. Ultimately, they keep living the same life. But it was just a really interesting premise, and did
you think that was well executed? That one?
I love that one.
That's your favorite one?
That was one of my favorites. That's one of the favorite books I read. And actually, I probably wouldn't have picked it up and never would have thought about it. But in that time, I was on a kick of entering Goodreads giveaways. And I always had 10 giveaways on the go. I didn't win most of them, obviously. But I would look and kind of think, yeah, this might be interesting. Sure, I'll enter this giveaway. And that was one of the ones that I won, and it was great.
The rest is history.
The rest is history.
If you went into a second life, would you delete me from that life?
No.
Okay.
No.
Just checking.
No. Interdependence issues.
Oh, and another favorite. The other favorite of hers?
Oh, Sudden Appearance of Hope was really interesting. That wasn't one of the ones that I gave my highest rating to. What did I rate that as? Okay, I only gave this one 3 stars, which is, I like anything that I gave 3 stars to.
Yes,
Sean and I have different interpretations of the 5-star
reality
system. I love you.
As I've been evangelizing about this recently, I say 3 stars is 60%. So 60% is not a good score.
3 stars is, I enjoyed it. I would even think about reading it again.
So 60% student here.
Please.
Most people who use Goodreads, that's how they rate.
I base my Goodreads rankings over when you hover over the stars, what Goodreads says about what each ranking means. That's how I base it.
God, conformist.
So that's on different sites. My rankings mean different things. And it's just based on what that site's rankings are.
Alrighty then.
I want to be understandable.
So what's this one about?
The Sudden Appearance of Hope. Her name is Hope, and obviously. But for some reason, partway through her life, suddenly people just start to forget her. Well, she is in your line of view. You remember her. You remember things you talked about. You remember everything that you've, discussed right in that moment. But as soon as you look away or leave the room, you forget her. You forget everything you've talked about. You don't remember anything about her. So it's a lonely existence for her, but it also talks about, obviously, but it talks about, how she deals with it. And part of it, she can get away with crimes because nobody can remember what she looks like. But it's an interesting look about her life and her identity and people who start chasing her and trying to find her, but they can't remember her. So they have to film little messages to themselves, trying to give themselves reminders about this is who this person is that you have locked up in the next room, or this is what they've done, or... So I really enjoyed it as well. Not as much as the first 15 Lives of Harry August, but just the premise of it was so interesting to me.
So when they're in the same room and looking at her, they have hope. When they go in the next room, they become hopeless. Life becomes hopeless.
It's over, Sean. Exactly.
Number 5, 2 bails, or 2 books you wish you'd bailed on, or 2 books you hated.
Okay, so I don't bail. This is where the biggest conflict in our relationship comes up.
Family feud, I tell ya.
Family feud. nasty fights about book bailing.
It's a DNF feud.
Cannot even imagine the dinner parties. Just the wine in the face. Sean likes it though, so no, he doesn't. Red's not his thing, so he does get a little bit upset.
Wine in the face. Don't threaten me with a good time.
And good times are had by all. Bails, yeah.
You don't bail.
I don't bail. There's books I haven't finished.
But that's not a bail.
No, it's not a bail. Because I refuse to give up on them. Like, there was one book called There Will Be Wolves by Carleen Bradford. I read the first chapter, I think, 4 times. Never finished it. Finally, 2 years ago, when I was back in Canada for Christmas, I found it in the closet of my childhood bedroom and sat down and powered through it in a day and a half. I couldn't tell you the first thing about what that book was about. I don't remember a single thing about it, to be honest. I remember I gave it 2 stars. I didn't talk about it earlier because I don't remember anything about it. But I finished it, and that's the point.
And there were wolves?
I guess so. I don't remember.
Time for some kind of intervention here. But anyway, so what 2 books are you going to tell us about? Is that one of your 2?
No, that's not one of my 2. So the 2 that I have not finished.
Oh. They're on hold.
Number 1. Mein Kampf. Your struggle. Let me tell you, no, that is my struggle. Getting through that, oh my gosh.
Whatever possessed you to.
I got to 1 page and the entire page was questions. There was not a single sentence that did not have the question mark. And I was in university and I was like, I have better things to do with my life. Like read my biology readings for this week. Just like watch my nail polish dry. Anything but read your, like honestly, anything but read your questions. I can't do this right now. So one day I will finish it because I don't quit. But the book is in Canada and I am not. So that one day is not anytime soon.
All right. Wow.
Yeah, it's an awful book anyways. I don't know.
I think it's a fabulous book not to have finished.
Yeah, I think I started reading it just because it had been on a banned book list and I disagree with the principle of banned books. I don't disagree with that the idea that people should not read that book, but just because it shouldn't be banned. Let people make their own minds up about that, I think.
Second one is the Bible.
Whew, boy. I'm not going to even touch on that. The other one is Flaneuse, and I ranted about that the last time we did this.
You did, and it's still in process?
I don't think I've read any further since the last time I ranted about it. I at least finished the chapter about Tokyo. And, like, honestly, keep your revenge breakup stories to yourself. Don't write them into your books. And don't take it on Tokyo. It's a lovely city. It's completely walkable. And just because it's your first time being a visible minority doesn't mean that you should freak out and decide that it's impossible to survive. So that's all I have to say about that now.
But you are going to finish it.
I'm going to finish it, but I'm going to be so angry. I want to drink later when I finish it.
Okay.
Thank you. I need you.
I'd rather see you finish Flaneuse than Mein Kampf, but anyway.
So bad.
All right. 2 favorite reads so far this year, number 6.
Okay. I didn't give this one 5 stars, although looking back on it, I feel like from how I feel and how much it's impacted me.
It's aging well in your memory?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, when I read books, I read them and I read through them pretty quickly, so I forget a lot very quickly. A lot of books don't really stick with me. But Into the Gray Zone by Adrian Owen, was it?
I think so.
It is Adrian Owen. Hooray!
Adrian Owen.
And it's about a neuroscientist who's looking at people who are in a vegetative state and trying to assess their level of consciousness, if there's really anything left there, if there's a person left, if they can tell anything or feel anything, and learning to communicate with some of the people who do have something left or some level of consciousness, and talking about even people who were in vegetative state and came out later and said, like, no, I was conscious and I remember everything and it was awful because people didn't know this, or like nobody treated me like I was a person anymore. And it's it's a nonfiction book, and it's written by a doctor, but it's written so beautifully, and it has a really good story to it. It's not dry at all, and it was so moving, and it really made me think about a lot of things.
I can see why it would.
And I mean, there were parts when people say, like, if I ever end up like that, no, pull the plug, I wouldn't want to live like that. But then it's, talking about how when they've managed to communicate, they're saying, like, no, I don't want to die.
Does it give some kind of a breakdown about what percentage of people that are in a vegetative state are like this, that actually have something left compared to the majority, or is it a minority thing, or a...
From his testing, I think he was at somewhere around 20%, he was estimating. Might have something left, but I mean, maybe, that he hadn't really... he was still learning ways to try to communicate with people and different ways to assess if there's consciousness, so...
And this is very still kind of cutting edge research and stuff. Does he talk about any of the political implications? Because especially in America, but also Canada, probably around the world, this is a hot topic in terms of end of life and
yes,
people doing living wills and stuff. Does he kind of?
Yeah, he definitely talked about that and how that's. I just said that briefly, but I mean, if you say, I wouldn't want to live like that, and yet there's people who, when he's been able to talk to them in this state, they've said, no, I don't want to die, I want to survive. And people who have locked-in syndrome, when they're there, all they can really do is blink their eyes. But at first their quality of life is really low, but apparently for a lot of them, I mean, they did an assessment, and it was with the people who are willing to answer. So he does say that, this might not be very representative, and they can't say it's statistically significant. But people that they surveyed said, as time went on, they're happy with their lives, and they have a lot better assessments of their quality of life than they would have anticipated beforehand. So it questions a lot about if you've expressed your wishes before,
right? But
then you're actually in the situation, and if you're in this vegetative state, but you're still conscious, and you're like, no, I don't want to die, but you said before that you want to, and they decide that to stop giving you support.
Very tricky.
So it was really deep, and it made me think a lot, and it's really, really stuck with me.
Wow. Time for a wine break.
The Emperor of All Maladies, Biography of Cancer. Classic.
Siddhartha Mukherjee.
Yes. Winner of the Pulitzer Prize.
It's supposed to be amazing.
It is really amazing. And the different directions cancer treatment's taken, and the history of treatment of cancer. It's incredible. I mean, it has a really American slant. A lot of things do. But I suppose that also affects how big it became in certain ways. But
is it accessible to somebody who's not scientifically trained?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, for someone who's not big on science or doesn't have a heavy science background, I think it's something that you probably want to read in small doses with something else, because it is quite heavy, but it does also talk about the politics of it. It talks about the history of cancer. It talks about different treatments. Some of it is just horrifying. The way they used to treat breast cancer, eliminate the most tissue possible. That will stop the cancer from coming back. And that was, before they got the concept of it could have moved to any portion of the body. So they were cutting out the breast and all the main tissues up until like even the neck. So you're leaving women hunchbacked with no muscle, basically. And it was just horrifying. But other parts were really very inspirational, and it was really intense, but it's an amazing.
It's been out for a few years, 5 years, 7 years.
It's been
but
out
you read
for
it
a while.
Fairly recently.
Yes, I just read it this year. I've been wanting to read it for a while, but I knew it would be quite a heavy read, so I wanted to wait until I was ready to take it on.
Sounds good. Don't you read any fiction?
Fiction? I read fiction.
Yes, you do.
I read fiction. When we talk about fiction, we can do that later. It doesn't fit into this.
That's right.
We'll talk later.
2 new favorite booktubers.
Favorite booktubers.
To be honest, you don't really watch booktube, but if you had to pick 2.
To be honest, I don't watch really much of anything because if I'm not reading, I can't sit still for that long. I just can't. I'm not built that way. But
if you had to pick 2,
this guy,
and
Peg.
Peg the book prize maniac.
We love you, Peg.
We do.
Your blanket was keeping me warm earlier because Sean loves the air conditioning much more than I do.
Even in early May.
Early May, Peg. Early May. I love your rainbow blanket.
We both do.
So much love.
Great. 8, a book you've read twice.
A book I read twice? Oh my gosh. I normally read books once or read them a whole bunch of times. So it's really hard for me to think of a book that I've read twice. But I just came up with this, and it's A Day in the Life of Marlon Bundo.
Rings a bell. Why do I know that one?
And that is the picture book that came out from John Holler's show Last Week Tonight. And it was in response to a lot of the sentiments that Mike Pence has towards gay relationships. And their bunny, of course, is called Marlon Bundo. They released a Day in the Life of... They also released their Marlon Bundo book around the same time, talking about being the vice president's bunny. But all of the politics, all of the joking aside, it's a beautiful story. I would get it for a kid's book for anyone because it's so wonderful, and it's just a book about love and how, if people love each other, that should be all that matters. Who gets to say who loves who? And it's so good. And I read it the first time in the book itself. And the audiobook as well is amazing.
Now, did John Oliver actually write it? He had a hand in it?
Yeah, it just says Last Week Tonight Presents, and one of his writers, I think, was actually the main writer behind it. I don't know how much involvement he had in writing the book itself. He might have had some and just not included himself.
And who does the audio?
And the audio was a number of people. It was Jim Parsons from Big Bang Theory fame. Does Marlon Bundo. And, it's a number of A-list actors, and I don't watch TV or watch movies, and I know their names. Oh my gosh.
Well, if you don't know them, I sure as hell wouldn't know them.
I do know them. This is awful. Who is the guy from Third Rock from the Sun?
Oh, John Lithgow.
John Lithgow!
That guy.
He's from Third Rock from the Sun. Jesse Tyler Ferguson.
Modern Family.
Modern Family. That's the family one.
That was good for the first season, maybe the first 2 seasons, and then it got really bad. I stopped watching it.
Oh, really?
Have you ever watched it?
I've watched a couple episodes.
Yeah, I know that it's fun. But they got, like most TV, it should be a movie, or it should be, 1 season and stop.
Jesse Tyler Ferguson. He's one of the gay dads, I think. I think he's the red-haired one.
The red-haired one. He's gay in real life, too.
Yeah, and he was one of the narrators in that as well.
As well he should. 9, 2 fabulous quotes from books you've read recently.
Yeah, the thing about that is, I read a lot of books. See, I'll come home at night, and I have a bathtub that has a timer on it. So I set my timer, and I get home, and the bathtub's
What happens when
ready
the
for me.
timer goes off? The plug pulls and you lose the water? Or?
No, the bathtub is ready. And the nice lady in my bathtub
What?
audio system tells me, your bath is ready.
You have a nice lady in your bathtub? Is there something you want to tell me?
You wish. No, I have an amazing Japanese bathtub, and you set it, and it says, you set the time for your bathtub. Did you put the plug in your tub? And I've forgotten before, so no, that's a good reminder. And then when it is ready, then she tells me that my bathtub is ready. So I put my bath salts in, and I set my timer, and then I go to work. And then when I come home...
And eventually we're going to find out how this relates
My
to
bath's
having
ready.
a quote from your book, but please continue.
You asked about the lady in my bathtub, so I am delivering.
Please continue. It's a lovely story. Lovely.
I'm going to write a book, and you're not going to come out nicely in it.
That's a given.
This is why I drink.
as you were saying.
So, bathtub, amazing. Take wine, take book, go in bath. Mm-hmm. But because I like to read in the bathtub, I don't really have any way to write down my quotes or really keep them. Because, water and no paper, and I need to get that paper that divers use. But I can't even remember what book it was. I was in the tub a while ago, and I could see it coming. I was reading down the page, and I knew it was getting there, and I was getting there. And I read that penultimate sentence, and I burst into tears in the bathtub. I just started sobbing. And I can't for the life of me remember which book it was, but I remember just sobbing in the bathtub.
Maybe you need to train your Japanese lady to take dictation.
I will look into that, but I think since I read in English, I think she needs to learn another language first, so we'll talk.
So that's why you didn't do your homework, because of that.
Yeah.
The bathtub ate it.
The bathtub lady doesn't speak my language.
All right, moving on.
Oh, gosh, don't show people this.
In fact, I think we're finished. Tag a number of booktubers. The total must be divisible by 2. Do you know any booktubers? You can tag Peg.
I know Sean and Peg. Yeah, I don't know any booktubers, but Peg. I love Peg.
Okay, so I will give 3 more to make it 4.
Okay.
Divisible by 2.
Okay.
Because I tagged
I met Lindy.
Lindy doesn't have unfortunately, Lindy doesn't have a booktube tag.
Really?
Booktube channel. She should.
She should.
So, in addition to the ones I tagged before, I'm going to tag Mel of Mel's Bookland Adventures. That's number 2. And Oly Bliss. Lovely, beautiful, blonde, gay guy from the UK.
Aww.
The sweetest guy ever.
I love sweet people.
Yeah, number 3.
You should do it.
And
I love you already.
Brian of Bookish. Lindsey tagged you. You have to do it, or she'll come get you.
I'm super menacing.
Thanks for watching.
We love you.